I can win in Rome it. Like, I can like be like, I'm here. They brought like, I'll like put the shit on. Her not doing that is so incredible. I hope she knows how awesome that was.
You said it yesterday, and I was like I'm not surprised by it. I'm not, because you know what? Everyone's always trying to get her to like wear something or do something, and like for her to be like, meh.
Everyone thinks they know what happened. A teammate said a few nice words, a clip went viral, and the internet moved on. But what if I told you that moment wasn't as innocent as it seemed? What if a simple 7-second comment was actually part of a calculated $1 million move, one that would shape public perception, influence league narratives, and redefine what loyalty really means inside the WNBA? On the surface, it looked like Sophie Cunningham was just being a good teammate, defending Caitlin Clark, the league's biggest new superstar. But underneath, it was something much smarter. This wasn't just about friendship or team chemistry. It was about power, positioning, and control of the most valuable brand the league has ever seen. Sophie wasn't protecting a person. She was protecting an asset, a symbol, a business. In today's WNBA, every reaction matters. Every soundbite, every social media clip, every harmless comment can shift millions in brand value. And Sophie Cunningham understands that game better than most. When she spoke up for Caitlin Clark, she wasn't just supporting her teammate. She was aligning herself with the face of the league, planting herself firmly in Clark's orbit and quietly crafting a new powerful image, the enforcer. Because loyalty in modern sports isn't just emotional, it's strategic, it's branding, it's business. And behind Sophie's fierce public loyalty lies a strategy that's as deliberate as it is brilliant. She's not just playing basketball, she's playing chess in a billion-dollar arena. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on how a single quote turned into a full-blown identity, how one player transformed a moment of support into a long-term brand, built on authenticity, aggression, and influence. This is the story of the enforcer, and why Sophie Cunningham's loyalty to Caitlin Clark might be one of the smartest business decisions in women's basketball. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to where it all began, the small, defiant act that started it all. It all started with something so small that most people barely noticed it at first. The Indiana Fever were being honored at an Indianapolis Colts game, a classic PR move meant to blend two hometown teams for a feel-good photo op. Every player was given a custom Colts jersey, asked to smile for the cameras and play along with the friendly gesture. But Caitlin Clark didn't play along. Instead of slipping on the jersey like everyone else, she just held it up. No smile, no forced enthusiasm, no fake celebration. Just quiet, confident defiance. It was a tiny moment, only a few seconds long, but it said everything about who she is. Caitlin Clark, a lifelong Kansas City Chiefs fan from Iowa, wasn't about to fake allegiance for a publicity stunt. She stayed true to herself, and that authenticity resonated instantly. Within hours, social media exploded. Fans called her a real one. The clip racked up millions of views across platforms, and suddenly, a harmless PR event had turned into a viral symbol of loyalty and integrity. Caitlin didn't have to say a single word. The act spoke louder than any statement. It was authenticity in its purest form. And in the modern sports world, authenticity is gold. But here's the part that most people missed. While fans were laughing, reposting, and calling her a legend, someone else was watching closely. Someone who understood exactly how powerful that moment was. Sophie Cunningham. She saw what everyone else saw, but she also saw the strategy behind it. On her podcast, she immediately praised the move, calling it awesome and incredible, highlighting not just the humor, but the honesty behind it. At first, it sounded like friendly support, one player hyping up another. But the more you look at it, the more you realize that this moment was the beginning of something much bigger. Sophie wasn't just celebrating Caitlyn's loyalty, she was aligning herself with it. She was linking her own brand to Caitlyn's defining quality, authenticity. That single reaction created a subtle connection between the two players in the public eye. It positioned Sophie as the first and loudest voice standing beside the league's most marketable star. It told fans, the media, and even the league itself, I get it, I'm with her. And in the world of modern sports media, that kind of alignment isn't just emotional, it's powerful. By speaking up, Sophie Cunningham wasn't just reacting to a viral clip, she was stepping into a narrative. She was tapping into the strongest emotional current in women's basketball. The belief that Caitlin Clark represents something real, something unfiltered, something the fans can trust. And by connecting herself to that energy, Sophie was setting the stage for what would soon become her own brand identity, the enforcer. Because as every smart player knows, words only take you so far. To build a brand that lasts, you need more than comments and compliments. You need action. And Sophie Cunningham was about to take that loyalty from the podcast mic to the hardwood, where things were about to get loud. When Sophie spoke up, it didn't sound like strategy. It sounded like loyalty. A veteran player standing up for her teammate, echoing the authenticity that fans already loved about Caitlin Clark. But here's what separates Sophie from most players in the league. She understands how moments like that echo far beyond the court. Every time she speaks, she's aware of how her words ripple through headlines, podcasts, and social feeds. And in that sense, her defense of Clark wasn't just emotional, it was tactical. By publicly praising Caitlin's defiant jersey moment, Sophie positioned herself at the intersection of two powerful narratives: the rise of Clark as the league's new face, and the growing movement of players who value raw authenticity over scripted professionalism. It wasn't just about cheering for a teammate, it was about joining a cause, the authentic athlete era that fans are hungry for. When Sophie said Caitlin's decision was awesome, she wasn't just hyping her up, she was signaling. She was telling the audience, I see what you see, and I'm on that side too. In the world of modern sports media, that's how brand alignments are built. Not in locker rooms, but in podcasts, posts, and clips that spread across the internet like wildfire. And here's the part that makes it brilliant. Sophie didn't have to chase attention. She didn't make the story about herself. Instead, she became the voice amplifying someone else's moment, which in turn made her look more connected, more aware, more in tune with the pulse of the league. Fans subconsciously associated her with Caitlin's most admired trait, authenticity. That's how brand association works. But Sophie didn't stop there. She leaned into that public image, slowly shaping herself into something more than just a supporter. Every interview, every tweet, every podcast segment subtly reinforced that alignment. Sophie's with Caitlin. It was quiet at first, but it was intentional. Because in a league that's exploding with new attention, visibility is everything. This was the start of a powerful brand partnership, not the kind that's written into contracts, but the kind that plays out in public perception. Sophie became the protector, the voice, the enforcer. And with each appearance, each statement, she was sharpening that image.
Most people thought she was just being loyal. But the truth is, Sophie was laying the foundation for something far bigger. A role that didn't just elevate Caitlin Clark's narrative, but created an entirely new identity for herself. Because loyalty can make you likable, but strategy makes you unforgettable. And Sophie Cunningham was about to turn her loyalty into a weapon, one that would earn her a nickname, a reputation, and eventually a brand. Next came the moment that defined everything, when talk turned into action and Sophie's words transformed into something much louder, the physical embodiment of the enforcer. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It built slowly, one moment at a time, until suddenly everyone watching the WNBA realized that Sophie Cunningham wasn't just talking anymore. She was embodying a new persona, the enforcer. On the court, it showed up in flashes, a stare down after a hard foul, a quick step toward an opponent who got too physical with Caitlin Clark, a shouted word that carried across the arena. You could feel it every time she was in the game. Sophie wasn't just playing basketball, she was making a statement. Her message was clear: if you come for Caitlin, you deal with me. And what made it fascinating was that none of it felt fake. This wasn't some premeditated WWE-style act. It felt natural, because for Sophie, it was natural. Long before she was a professional athlete, she was a fighter, literally. Most people don't know that Sophie Cunningham is a former black belt in Taekwondo. She earned that at just 6 years old. That's discipline. That's control. That's the foundation of her edge. The same mindset that teaches precision, focus, and calm under pressure is exactly what she brings to the court today. So when fans started calling her the Enforcer, it wasn't just a nickname. It was an identity that fit perfectly. It captured everything about her: fierce, protective, loyal, and unafraid to get loud when others stay silent. But the key difference was intent. Sophie wasn't just playing tough for show. She was defending something, or rather, someone. Throughout the season, the evidence stacked up. Every time an opponent got physical with Caitlin Clark, Sophie was there, closing the distance, making her presence known. She didn't need to say a word. Her body language did the talking. And fans noticed. Clips of her stepping in to protect Clark started circulating online, turning her into both a meme and a myth, the teammate who always had Caitlin's back. It wasn't just viral moments either. Sophie's aggressive play style cost her real money. She's been fined multiple times by the WNBA, not just for hard fouls, but for something far more interesting: speaking her mind. When she called out the league's officiating on her podcast, people thought she was just venting. But what she was actually doing was something bigger, reinforcing the idea that she's the one who stands up when everyone else stays quiet. When she publicly criticized league executives, saying they don't know a thing about basketball, that wasn't just frustration, that was enforcement. A line drawn in public telling the world that she won't let anyone, not players, not referees, not management, disrespect the people on the court. Piece by piece, Sophie was building a narrative that blended raw toughness with moral conviction. She was positioning herself as both a shield and a sword, someone who defends her people and challenges authority when necessary. And that's exactly why fans gravitated to her. They weren't just watching her protect Caitlin Clark, they were watching her protect the idea of players standing up for themselves. In a league that's rapidly evolving, that image is powerful, it's emotional, it's marketable. Sophie Cunningham was becoming more than a player. She was becoming a symbol, a personification of loyalty, authenticity, and resistance, all wrapped in one explosive persona. But here's the part almost no one talked about. Being the enforcer isn't just about attitude, it's about economics. Because behind every foul, every fine, and every viral clip lies a much bigger motive. One that has less to do with emotion and everything to do with money. And if you really want to understand why Sophie Cunningham plays this role so fiercely, you have to follow the trail that every smart athlete eventually follows: the money. When people talk about the enforcer, they usually stop at the surface. They talk about Sophie's toughness, her loyalty, her willingness to speak up when others stay silent. But that's only half the story. The real reason her brand is so powerful and so deliberate is because it sits at the crossroads of something much bigger: money. In the WNBA, the Caitlin Clark effect isn't hype, it's hard data. Since Clark entered the league, viewership has shattered records. Ticket sales, merchandise, sponsorships, social media engagement, every measurable number has exploded. She's not just a player, she's an economy. Entire arenas that once struggled to fill seats now sell out in hours simply because she's on the court. The league's growth charts don't lie. They all spike in one direction, and they all trace back to one name: Caitlin Clark. Now imagine you're a veteran like Sophie Cunningham. You've been in the league for years. You understand how it works. And suddenly this rookie comes in and changes everything. The cameras follow her, the money follows her, and the league's future starts revolving around her. You can either compete for that spotlight, or you can align yourself with it. And Sophie chose alignment. Strategically, that's the smartest move a player in her position could make. Protecting Caitlin Clark isn't just about friendship, it's a financial strategy. Every time Sophie steps in, whether it's on the court during a tenth moment or online when Clark's under fire, she's doing more than defending a teammate. She's defending the league's single most valuable asset. If Clark represents the brand that fuels the league's future, Sophie represents the insurance policy that protects it. And here's where it gets brilliant. By being that protector, Sophie is not just building her own reputation, she's making herself indispensable. When one player becomes the face of a league, it creates a vulnerability. The league needs her safe, stable, and supported. Sophie fills that gap perfectly. She's not just another player on the roster. She's part of the infrastructure around the superstar, a human shield that makes the entire system more secure. From a business standpoint, this is genius. The WNBA isn't like the NBA. The pay gap is massive, and every bit of visibility counts. Building a distinctive public identity isn't optional, it's survival. And by crafting her enforcer persona, Sophie has given herself a unique market position that nobody occupies. She's not just valuable because of her stats, she's valuable because of what she represents. Loyalty, authenticity, and resistance, all wrapped in one explosive persona.
But here's the part almost no one talked about. Being the enforcer isn't just about attitude, it's about economics. Because behind every foul, every fine, and every viral clip lies a much bigger motive, one that has less to do with emotion and everything to do with money. And if you really want to understand why Sophie Cunningham plays this role so fiercely, you have to follow the trail that every smart athlete eventually follows: the money. When people talk about the enforcer, they usually stop at the surface. They talk about Sophie's toughness, her loyalty, her willingness to speak up when others stay silent. But that's only half the story. The real reason her brand is so powerful and so deliberate is because it sits at the crossroads of something much bigger: money. In the WNBA, the Caitlin Clark effect isn't hype, it's hard data. Since Clark entered the league, viewership has shattered records. Ticket sales, merchandise, sponsorships, social media engagement, every measurable number has exploded. She's not just a player, she's an economy. Entire arenas that once struggled to fill seats now sell out in hours, simply because she's on the court. The league's growth charts don't lie. They all spike in one direction, and they all trace back to one name: Caitlin Clark. Now imagine you're a veteran like Sophie. You've been in the league for years. You understand how it works. And suddenly this rookie comes in and changes everything. The cameras follow her, the money follows her, and the league's future starts revolving around her. You can either compete for that spotlight, or you can align yourself with it. And Sophie chose alignment. Strategically, that's the smartest move a player in her position could make. Protecting Caitlin Clark isn't just about friendship, it's a financial strategy. Every time Sophie steps in, whether it's on the court during a tense moment or online when Clark's under fire, she's doing more than defending a teammate. She's defending the league's single most valuable asset. If Clark represents the brand that fuels the WNBA's future, Sophie represents the insurance policy that protects it. And here's where it gets brilliant. By being that protector, Sophie's not just building her own reputation. She's making herself indispensable. When one player becomes the face of a league, it creates a vulnerability. The league needs her safe, stable, and supported. Sophie fills that gap perfectly. She's not just another player on the roster. She's part of the infrastructure around the superstar, a human shield that makes the entire system more secure. From a business standpoint, this is genius. The WNBA isn't like the NBA. The pay gap is massive, and every bit of visibility counts. Building a distinctive public identity isn't optional, it's survival. And by crafting her enforcer persona, Sophie has given herself a unique market position that nobody else occupies. She's not just valuable because of her stats. She's valuable because of what she represents: loyalty, authenticity, and stability around chaos. That's why her fines don't hurt her as much as they seem. Every time she gets fined for speaking her mind, she reinforces her brand. Every time she's quoted for saying something bold, her audience grows. In the social media age, controversy isn't a liability, it's currency. Sophie Cunningham understands this better than anyone.
When you zoom out, it's clear she's not acting on impulse. She's playing a long game. Protecting Caitlin Clark protects the attention that fuels the league's media deals, sponsorships, and future salary caps. And as those numbers rise, so does her value. She's defending more than a teammate. She's defending her own financial ecosystem. That's what makes the enforcer identity so powerful. It's emotional, but it's also economical. It's about loyalty, but it's also about leverage. Sophie has built a bridge between two worlds, the personal and the professional, and she walks it perfectly. But that's only half of her strategy. Because while her actions on the court cemented her as the enforcer, her real power move was off the court, in a space where she didn't need permission, where she controlled the message completely, her podcast. And that's where the story takes an even sharper turn, because what she says behind the mic isn't just commentary, it's a masterclass in narrative control. For Sophie Cunningham, the court isn't the only place she enforces her presence. Her sharpest weapon doesn't come in the form of a shove, a foul, or a stare down. It comes from her voice. While other players rely on post-game interviews and carefully filtered press quotes, Sophie built something far more powerful, her own platform, a podcast called Show Me Something. And it's not just another sports show, it's her control room. Through her podcast, Sophie did something rare in the world of professional sports. She took back the narrative. No journalists twisting quotes, no PR staff toning down her opinions, no league officials deciding what's appropriate. It's her mic, her words, her rules. That freedom transformed her from just another player into a storyteller, a brand architect, and most importantly, the unfiltered voice of the locker room. When she praises Caitlin Clark on air, it feels casual, even playful. But the effect is huge. Every word shapes how fans see their relationship, reinforcing Sophie as the defender, the loyal voice, the trusted ally. And when she's blunt, when she calls out officials, criticizes the league, or says things that make PR departments squirm, that's when her enforcer brand hits its peak. Because she's not just protecting Clark anymore, she's protecting every player who's afraid to speak up. That's what makes her dynamic with Clark so fascinating. Caitlin Clark, as the new face of the WNBA, can't risk controversy. Her image has to stay clean, polished, humble, aspirational. She's the league's poster child, the one who sells the dream. Sophie, on the other hand, has no such restriction. She can afford to be the bad cop. She can say the things Caitlin can't. It's a perfect balance. Clark keeps the spotlight. Sophie controls the conversation around it. In one podcast segment, Sophie admitted she hadn't watched a single minute of the WNBA playoffs after her team's exit. She said she needed a cleanse, that she was checked out. Most players wouldn't dare say that publicly. It sounds careless, even rebellious. But in Sophie's case, it played perfectly into her brand. Fans saw it not as arrogance, but as authenticity. She wasn't faking excitement for PR. She was being real, raw, unfiltered, and honest in a way that felt rare in modern sports. That's the genius of Show Me Something. It lets Sophie walk the fine line between controversy and connection. Every unfiltered moment, every off-the-cuff comment feels spontaneous, but it reinforces the same message. She's fearless, outspoken, and loyal to the truth, even if that truth ruffles feathers. And for fans who feel disconnected from the overly sanitized world of professional sports, that's exactly what keeps them listening. Her podcast doesn't just amplify her personality, it multiplies her influence. It allows her to shape how people view the team, the league, and the power structures behind it. When she backs up a teammate like Caitlin Clark or supports someone like Napheesa Collier after a public clash with league management, it's not random, it's targeted. Every episode builds the same identity, Sophie as the projector, the player who fights for others when the league won't. And here's the thing, she knows exactly what she's doing. In one interview, she said, "I represent a lot of people who don't say stuff, so I want to make sure I say it right." That line is telling. It's not rebellion, it's representation. She's turning her voice into a platform not just for herself, but for everyone who's tired of the league's politics, media spin, and PR barriers. By controlling her narrative, Sophie has done something few athletes ever achieve. She's become media-proof. She doesn't need the league's approval because she already has the fans. Every viral quote, every fiery clip, every bold opinion feeds directly into her image. And that image is bulletproof because it's based on honesty. But make no mistake, this isn't just about speaking truth. It's about strategy. Every time she goes viral, every time she trends for saying something others wouldn't, she strengthens her leverage, not just as a player, but as a brand. And the Enforcer nickname isn't just a nickname anymore, it's her marketing engine. And that engine is running perfectly as she approaches the next critical phase of her career. Because while everyone else sees the noise, Sophie sees the opportunity. Every statement, every clip, every headline she controls is building towards something, her future. And that's where everything comes together. Because the next chapter in Sophie Cunningham's story isn't about loyalty or controversy. It's about legacy, leverage, and what comes after being the enforcer. Every smart player knows the truth that few ever say out loud. The real game isn't played on the court. It's played in contracts, negotiations, and headlines. The ones who last the longest aren't just the most athletic. They're the ones who understand how to turn visibility into value. And that's exactly what Sophie Cunningham is doing. While most of the league still sees her as the fiery veteran who defends her teammates and speaks her mind, Sophie sees the long-term play. The enforcer persona isn't just about protecting Caitlin Clark in the present, it's about protecting herself in the future. Because after years in the league, Sophie knows what comes next. The uncertainty of free agency, the risk of being overlooked, the revolving door of new talent hungry to take your spot. So she's doing what every strategic player should. She's building something that no rookie can replicate. A brand. At the end of the 2025 season, Sophie Cunningham hits free agency. She's already hinted that her time with the Indiana Fever could be limited, especially with whispers of a potential lockout on the horizon. But rather than waiting for the league to decide her fate, she's shaping her own. Every move she's made, every act of loyalty, every viral quote, every headline feeds into a resume that's far more powerful than her stat sheet.
Think about it. She's positioning herself as more than a guard, more than a scorer. She's establishing herself as a necessary presence, the veteran every team with a superstar needs. Someone who stabilizes a locker room, defends the face of the franchise, and handles the dirty work when the cameras are rolling. In a league that's growing faster than its infrastructure, that role is priceless. Because make no mistake, this isn't just about basketball, it's about business. Every general manager in the WNBA understands that success today isn't just measured by wins and losses, it's measured by narratives. Who drives ticket sales? Who builds fan loyalty? Who protects your investment? And Sophie has built her image to answer all three. By standing beside Caitlin Clark, not behind her, Sophie's shown she can amplify the league's biggest brand while creating one of her own. That makes her more than a player. It makes her a strategic asset. Any team with a marketable star knows they need someone like her, someone who's not afraid to speak, fight, and, when necessary, absorb the backlash. It's the perfect business model. Clark is the face, Sophie is the firewall. And that dynamic doesn't expire when the season ends. It travels with her, wherever she signs next. That's the quiet genius of the Enforcer brand. It's portable, transferable, and future-proof. Whether she stays in Indiana or moves to another team, she carries her media influence, her fan loyalty, and her unique public identity with her. And Sophie knows this. That's why she's leaned so hard into being unfiltered. It's why she's accepted the fines, the criticism, even the controversy. Because she's not playing for this season, she's playing for longevity. She's building a career that extends beyond basketball, one that can survive the shifting tides of the league. When you own your voice and your image, you're never at the mercy of anyone else's narrative. In many ways, Sophie Cunningham is doing what very few athletes, male or female, ever master. She's turning her reputation into leverage. By crafting her image as the outspoken, fearless veteran, she's ensuring that she'll always have a seat at the table, whether as a player, media personality, or brand ambassador. And that's what makes the Enforcer identity so fascinating. It's not a phase, it's a strategy, one built to last. As the WNBA evolves, players like Sophie are rewriting the rules of how influence works. Loyalty becomes leverage, authenticity becomes currency, and controversy, when handled right, becomes brand equity. So when you see Sophie step up, speak out, or throw herself into a fight that isn't hers, don't mistake it for impulse. It's chess, not checkers. Every move calculated, every risk measured, every headline earned. She's not just fighting for her teammate, she's fighting for her future. And now, as her free agency looms, every word she says, every play she makes, every moment she trends online is part of that campaign. The Enforcer isn't just a nickname anymore, it's her business model. It's her legacy in motion. But the question that remains, and the one that fans keep debating, is what that legacy really means. Is Sophie Cunningham redefining what it means to be a teammate in the modern WNBA? Or is she simply the smartest player in the room, building an empire of loyalty and controversy, one viral moment at a time? When you step back and look at the full picture, it becomes clear that Sophie Cunningham's story isn't just about basketball. It's about evolution. The evolution of athletes, of media, and of what it means to control your own narrative in a league where every word, every clip, and every headline can define your career. Sophie has turned loyalty into strategy, authenticity into power, and controversy into momentum. And in doing so, she's revealed something that few people ever notice. In modern sports, image is influence, and influence is everything. The Enforcer isn't just a persona, it's a system, a business model built on authenticity, risk, and alignment. Sophie has become the living embodiment of a new kind of player, one who understands that in a media-driven era, silence is vulnerability. The athletes that last are the ones who speak, who shape, who own their stories before someone else does. And that's exactly what Sophie has mastered. She's not reacting to headlines, she's writing them. Her loyalty to Caitlin Clark may have started as genuine friendship, but it's evolved into something far more strategic. Together, the two of them have become a symbiotic force, the hero and the protector, the brand and the voice, the symbol and the shield. It's a dynamic that benefits both women, and it's changing the way fans see the WNBA. Because behind the highlight reels and the stats, what people are really drawn to is authenticity, and Sophie has built her entire career around it. But it also raises a deeper question, one that goes beyond sports. In a world where every move is recorded, analyzed, and monetized, Can authenticity survive once it becomes strategy? Is Sophie Cunningham's realness a product of instinct or intelligence? Is she a fiercely loyal teammate or a brilliant brand architect who understands the exact emotional language of the internet? Maybe the answer is both. Maybe what makes Sophie's story so fascinating is that it lives in that gray area between truth and calculation, between loyalty and leverage. She's authentic because she's strategic, and strategic because she's authentic. That paradox is what keeps people watching, debating, and clicking replay. And that's the genius of her approach. She's not just building a brand, she's building intrigue. Every headline about her finds, every clip of her stepping up for Caitlyn, every quote from her podcast fuels the same energy. Who is Sophie Cunningham really? A loyal friend? A media mastermind? A disruptor? Or all of the above? What's undeniable is that she's turned perception into power. She's proved that influence doesn't come from playing nice, it comes from playing smart. And whether fans see her as a hero, a villain, or somewhere in between, they're still watching, still talking, still feeding the machine that she built with precision and purpose. So as Sophie Cunningham heads into free agency, her next move isn't just about where she'll play, it's about how she'll continue to shape the game off the court. Because wherever she goes, the enforcer goes with her. That brand, that identity, that voice, it's her greatest asset, and she knows it. And maybe that's the real story here. Not the jersey moment, not the podcast, not even the fines or the headlines. It's the story of an athlete who figured out how to turn narrative into currency, how to transform loyalty into leverage, and how to remind the world that in today's game, the smartest player doesn't always have the best stats, just the best strategy. So what do you think? Is Sophie Cunningham's enforcer strategy a brilliant act of career genius, or just the purest form of loyalty we've seen in years? Drop your take in the comments below, because one thing's for sure, in the world of modern sports, the real story is never the official one. And if you believe that too, if you believe there's always a story behind the story, make sure to subscribe, tap that bell, and stick around. Because the next time we peel back the curtain, what we uncover might just change how you see the game entirely.